Coming to you from his studio in downtown San Francisco, this is the Backstage Bay Area podcast. And now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is Backstage Bay Area, and I'm your host, Stephen Roby. My guest today is a jazz guitarist and composer whom DownBeat magazine has repeatedly named a rising star, and whose sound has captivated audiences from São Paulo to New York. Born and raised in Brazil, he has distinguished himself as a virtuoso who seamlessly blends classical music's harmonic sophistication with jazz's improvisational fire. He's a two-time Grammy nominee and has collaborated with a remarkable array of artists, including Herbie Hancock, Diane Reeves, and our local sax icon, Chris Potter. He's here to discuss his musical journey and his upcoming duo performances at SFJAZZ with Vinicius Cantuária. Chico Pinheiro joins me now, all the way from São Paulo. Greetings from San Francisco.
Hi, Steve. It's a pleasure to be talking to you and this beautiful audience. So thank you for having me.
I want to start with your early days in São Paulo. You picked up the guitar at age 6, but what really struck me in your biography is that by age 14, you were already working as a studio session guitarist. This is incredibly young to be stepping into a professional recording environment. Do you remember the moment or the session where you realized you weren't just a student of the instrument anymore, but a professional musician with your own voice?
Yeah, Steve, that's a nice, memory. I remember pretty clear. I keep my receipt. I have a receipt from my very first recording session. It's not framed, but I'm planning to frame it. I remember actually I was 12. I was turning 13, and some friends, they have this studio. Actually, a friend of mine that recommended me for this recording session, and I remember I was very nervous, but I think that was, playing the guitar was something that was always natural, for me. Like from the first time I picked the instrument, it felt super natural, and I stayed as a self-taught, I kept myself as a self-taught musician till I was maybe 15, 16. Then I started digging deeper and studying the instrument more seriously. I used to play by ear mostly. So when I started working, I couldn't read music. I could read some, kind of chords,
Sure,
but not really read music. So everything was kind of, I was playing by ear, So that actually, it has obviously a downside, but I mean, the good side is that I developed my ears pretty early, and then I started digging deeper into theory and the academics of it. But I mean, at first I was playing all by myself and by ear. I know it took me a while to have a guitar teacher,
sure,
a private teacher. So, but I remember pretty clearly, it was a jingle, it was one of those 30 seconds jingle,
for radio or something?
For a radio, exactly.
Yeah.
For radio. And then I had a solo, kind of like an overdrive solo, and I started out playing because of Jimi Hendrix. So I loved it. So my very first instrument was the electric guitar, actually.
Okay.
And then I switched to classical, nylon string guitar. So that was something that I always loved playing, rock and roll. So, and I remember that. I always had fun playing. So that was a big part of it. Some people they started out studying theory, and it's kind of hard. I always, encourage my students, especially when they're young kids, and as the young kids, to, to play for fun, because I think it's a very, very important part of the profession, and sometimes we forget about that, right? We become super serious musicians and artists, and we forget that we have to have fun. That is not because a teacher of mine used to say that it's not because it's fun that it can't be serious, and it's not because it's serious that it can be fun.
Yeah. When you mentioned Jimi Hendrix, I had to laugh because I've written 3 books about Jimi Hendrix and worked for his family. And so when you said Jimi Hendrix was your major influence, I go, all right, a fellow Jimi Hendrix brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, Steve. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, but my mom, she's still like him, she's a huge fan.
Wow.
So she was the one that introduced me to the music of Jimi Hendrix, and early on. So that was my first, guitar hero. And I think my biggest influence on the guitar.
Well, glad to hear that. Anyway, let me get back on track here. You're coming to San Francisco for a very special collaboration with Vinicius Cantuária, a musician who has his own rich history as a hit maker in Brazil and a jazz innovator in New York. You contributed to his Jobim back in 2015. How has your musical relationship with Vinicius evolved over the years, and what makes the chemistry between the two of you work so well in a duo format?
I always been a huge fan of, we are from kind of different generations. Vinicius is older than me. So I grew up listening to his music, especially his collaborations with Caetano Veloso. And first, so Vinicius used to play a lot with Caetano. They toured together for a long time. They made like quite a few albums together, and he used to play the drums. He's an amazing drummer.
Oh.
Besides the guitar, so he's kind of a multi-instrumentalist. He plays everything: bass and guitar and drums. And I remember listening to Vinicius on those old records of Caetano Veloso, which I love. And our relationship started out. We have a lot of common friends, right? And I started working with Joyce, which is a great singer from Brazil, and their friends. And I started out playing with some friends, common friends. And then we were introduced by a friend of us called Ricardo Silveira, which is a great guitar player that used to play with Milton Nascimento and Elis Regina, Ricardo. And then Ricardo introduced us, and we became friends instantly, and I remember it was funny because I told him, I used to play your songs for girlfriends, at the beach, and he laughed about it. His songs I love, he's a really amazing composer and guitar player as well. Yeah. So it was kind of easy, there was this kind of simpatical thing between us from the beginning, right? So so here we are,
nice
touring, playing together. I'm very excited about these concerts, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty special. We rehearsed a little bit in Rio.
Oh wow!
And it was magical. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be as magical, in the SFJAZZ.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit later in the show. But first, let's discuss the music you selected for us today. The first piece I'm going to play is called "City of Dreams." This title invokes vivid imagery, perhaps of New York or maybe even your own hometown of São Paulo. Can you tell us the story behind this composition and what specific dream or place you were trying to capture in the melody?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, exactly. I think when I wrote this piece, I thought more of a suite. So you have these different sections, right? Almost like if it was a suite, with an opening, and then you have a development, and then you have the closing or outro, whatever you want to call it. And the outro is kind of the guitar solo, and I thought about, it's very, as you said, it's imagery. I thought about this I was going to New York. I was moving from São Paulo, which is a big city, to New York, which is another big city, right?
Right.
They are both really big cities, and one thing that really I think it's a very interesting aspect of New York is everyone that goes there has a dream, people, when they go there, they have a dream, and it's a very vibrant city in a way. But on the other hand, it's kind of solitary because it's really hard to make friends there.
Yeah.
So that's why, if you look at the cover of the album, it's a desert. Right. So but you can see from far some lights, which is kind of so anyway, and all that, the imagery, the cover of the album and all that, I think kind of make me think about when you're moving, to a completely, strange place. Like you have all these expectations and all these kind of, it's a dreamy. That's why I call it City of Dreams, right? Because I was there, actually, I was really full of dreams when I moved there. So like, how is it gonna be? You know, how is that gonna work for me? You know, we never know. We never know. So like, it's all you have is your bag, and you're full of expectations. And I'm really happy in New York right now. So like, I think I made the right move moving there, but I miss São Paulo too. So like, they're very both dear places to me, you know.
All right. Well, let's listen to the track now. This is City of Dreams, and you're listening to Backstage Bay Area. This is Backstage Bay Area. We just heard City of Dreams, the title track from Chico Pinheiro's album. Chico is my guest today.
Sure.
Chico, your bio notes that you are a unique composer who blends Brazilian, classical, and jazz. I'm curious about that intersection. When you are composing, do you consciously try to balance those three pillars, or has that become second nature to you at this point in your career?
I think that's another interesting question. I think it's no, at this point it's a second nature. It's something that I can't avoid it. I can't help it. It's something that is like I grew up listening to Brazilian music, obviously. Like my mom used to play, and she's still playing. Like she used to hold like some jam sessions at home,
wow,
playing the piano and the guitar. So that's the music that I have in my heart, right? And classical music, it's something that when I started out studying it, classical guitar, nylon string guitar is something that I love classical music, especially when it comes to composing, like the compositions, the writing, I think it's amazing. So every time, and jazz, it's something that it's being a passion of mine, from early on. So like these three, I think these three genres, genres as you, or whatever you want to call it. I don't like that much to label, because
right.
I think nowadays, it's kind of, there's the intersection between them. It's what interesting me the most. That I think it's the most interesting thing about the music. Like all these intersections that you can find between rock and classical music and Brazilian music, they all have like common elements that, those, and I love that. That's what I love about me. So like every time I try playing, or especially when I'm writing a piece, I try to bring all that and make sense of it, which is not easy, because sometimes like like if you find like there's always this common ground that you can kind of like bring all these elements together, and like sometimes it works, and I love that challenge, but I think it's a natural thing. I don't think that much, I think that comes naturally, and I think for everyone that I talk about, as a composer, it has to be like that. Otherwise, like it sounds a little bit academic or something, like I think, like it comes from a different place. So I try to be as, like intuitive as I can when I'm writing and when I'm playing, obviously.
You do it well, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
Let's move to the second track you brought, Estrada Real. The title translates to Royal Road, referring to this historic path in Brazil used during the gold rush era. Musically, this track has a wonderful sense of movement and history. What should our listeners focus on in terms of the rhythm or the emotion you put into this recording?
The nice. I like it. Always a good thing to talk about. Thank you, Steve. So this Estrada Real was, as you said, it was a very important, road that used to be, like that they used to, from the gold, like when they used to transport gold in Brazil. And it has a lot to do with the slavery, with the Brazilian history. And I've been there many times to this road, and it's a beautiful road, actually. So that when I was writing this tune, I was kind of like thinking about, when I started, writing the tune, I was kind of like, it transported me immediately to that road, as you said, I think it's a very emotional thing for me. So I would love to the audience to feel that emotion, and that has to do with Brazil, has to do actually with my youth and when I was a teenager, and I used to go to that beautiful place. So that's what I tried to emulate when I wrote this song.
All right. Well, let's take a trip down that Royal Road now. This is Estrada Real by Chico Pinheiro. You're listening to Backstage Bay Area. That was Estrada Real by Chico Pinheiro, who is my guest today here on Backstage Bay Area. Chico, you will perform live on Friday, January 16th and Saturday, January 17th, 2 shows per night at the Joe Henderson Lab in the SFJAZZ Center. You're certainly no stranger to the Bay Area, having played everywhere from Yoshi's in Oakland to the Blue Note in Napa, and spent years teaching at the California Brazil camp in Cazadero. What is it about this region that keeps drawing you back, and do you find local audiences have a specific connection to Brazilian music?
I love the Bay Area. I love that. I'm loving that you're mentioning that, because I've been going to the Bay Area. It's been years, for now I think since 2000, maybe 10 or something like that. Almost every year, and I love it. I think I love the spirit, the openness of the people there. I feel at home, and I think I'm always thinking about, should I move to California? Should I move to the Bay Area? It's something that keep crossing my mind, and I just love the people. I have many friends there, and I just love the spirit. I love the Berkeley. I could easily move there, and I love San Francisco, obviously, Oakland, and they're very different
vibes
from each other, different vibes and different people. But I love them all, and I think the Bay Area, I always tell people, living in the States, if I could choose 2 places, would be either New York or the Bay Area, to live. I think they are 2 very special places for different reasons, but they're very, musical and full of culture. And so I love that. I grew up in a city like that. So every time I go to the Bay Area, I really feel at home because of the people. I have so many friends, and it's so, it's so familiar to me. And now, after all of these years going to the Bay Area, it feels like home, really.
All right. We'd love to have you come here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
For your upcoming visit to San Francisco and your performance at the Joe Henderson Lab with Vinicius Cantuária, the show notes mention that Vinicius is fresh off his release, Psychedelic Rio. Can the audience expect to hear material from that new record, and will there be room for the 2 of you to, let's say, explore some of your original compositions as well?
I think we're gonna play some of that, from his newest album, some of the things that we've done together, some classics, like a bossa nova classics, as we're gonna play Jobim. We're gonna play some different arrangements from Jobim, and we're gonna play some of my stuff probably. So it's gonna be a mix of his stuff, Vinicius's stuff, my stuff, my material, and some from the Brazilian book, the old and great Brazilian books. So like Jobim and Donato and Gilberto Gil. So we're gonna play a mix of things that we love, we both love, and it is gonna be super fun. I'm pretty sure.
It sounds like a beautiful weekend of music coming up.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope people, come on out. I think it's gonna be great, and it's gonna be great to see all my friends, at the Bay Area coming to the concert. I would like to invite them all to the concert. You're not gonna regret.
All right, and let me remind our listeners, you can see Vinicius Cantuária and Chico Pinheiro live at SFJAZZ Center, Joe Henderson Lab on Friday, January 16th. And Saturday, January 17th. There are 2 shows each night. The earlier show is at 7 p.m. and 8:30 is the later show. Tickets are now available at sfjazz.org, and we will include a link for tickets in the show notes for this podcast. Chico, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure. And I hope to see you there, and I hope to see all my friends, in the Bay Area at the concerts.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chico.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Backstage Bay Area will be right back after this message.
Are you a jazz musician preparing for a run in San Francisco? The Backstage Bay Area podcast wants to help tell your story. We are currently filling our guest lineup with the artists keeping the jazz scene alive. If you have dates booked at a local club or concert hall, let's get you on the mic to discuss your latest work. Connect with us directly. Send an email to backstage.sfbay@gmail.com. Just let us know when you'll be playing in San Francisco. That's backstage.sfbay@gmail.com.
You've been listening to the Backstage Bay Area podcast. Visit us on the web at backstagebayarea.com. And don't forget to keep jazz alive in the 415.